Hello, listeners. Welcome to another episode of the Unapologetically Unstoppable Women podcast. And today, all three of us are here. Yay, we're celebrating that. Um, and we have a really cool discussion that we really want you to chime in on. But before we get started, we want to give just a little bit of a caveat. And we are going to be talking about words that get applied to men and women differently. So, for example, um, a bold woman can be seen as too much of anything, right? Where a bold man actually gets respect because he's bold. And so it's the same word, it just gets applied a little bit different of meaning because it's applied to men or women. But the caveat is we are not bashing men. That's not what we do here in the Unapologetically Unstoppable Women. That's not what we stand for. Because we've learned that women apply these words to men differently. So we're guilty of doing it. And society, it really does come more from some society. A lot of times it comes from our own families, our own communities, our own circles of influence. And so we just wanted to add that little caveat, but we really want to hear your stories. And we'll get more into that here in a moment. But welcome to the show. Hi, Lori and Anne.
Hello, Angie.
Hey.
And yes, we love men, so we're not man bashing.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Uh, so tell us, I know we all have stories, but tell us a story about where, you may have experienced one of these words that gets applied to men and women differently.
I can't necessarily say that I've done that, like had it applied negatively to me, but then a lot of times you don't know when it's being applied to you negatively, right? People are going to come up and say, "Oh, you're a bitch," Oh, can I say that on that?
Yes.
But I mean,
So,
that's one, yeah, that's one of the, yeah, exactly. But that's one of the things. It's like when you're um, aggressive or when you are standing your ground, that word comes up. I hear it a lot because, well, how could you possibly do that? And again, I haven't necessarily heard it to me, but I've seen it applied to other people. And they may just be saying it to other people about me. I don't know.
Sure.
But I do know we now in my first job out of college, I had a great manager and a woman, and she was very strict. I don't strict is not the right word, but she had a lot of belief in herself, and she knew what she was doing. And so we all what did we call her? We gave her a name, but it was fun. It sounded it was like it was the Dragon Lady. We
Oh,
called her the Dragon Lady, but we called it to her face, and she was proud of that because when it came down to we need to get stuff done, we need to get stuff done. But other than that, she was a lot of fun, and so yeah, I guess that's not really the type of thing that you're looking for necessarily, but that's what I have.
well, I have a story, but it's not my story. I was on a Zoom call this week, and I've heard her actually say this before, but a very successful speaker, and she was trying to work with a Christian organization. And because she owned 51% of her company and her husband owns 49% of the company, they wouldn't work with her because they didn't think it was Christian for the female to own more than the male. And I was like, wow, that's interesting.
mm,
Ridiculous.
yeah.
and
And people get
and
to
not
believe what they want to
Christian.
believe,
Yeah, yeah,
whatever. But I was just like, that she's married, she's doing, but because she owned more of her company, I'm like, that is,
and
Yeah.
not to get religious, but that's not Christian. That's not a Christian attitude, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole nother topic for a whole
Yes,
nother show.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Where
But I know
so
my mom used to tell me, like, I'd come home and complain about somebody, and she's like, they're just intimidated by you. So I grew up hearing that, but I
Mhm.
didn't know what it meant. Like,
Mm,
I understand the word intimidating,
yeah.
but I didn't know how it was being applied, and it just always felt weird. So I'm like, no, or they're just, I don't even know how to finish that sentence. I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't think it has anything to do with me. I think it has to do with them.
Yes, yes, exactly. Where I have a story for every story for every story because all of think of the word and it has been applied to me in different ways. And like so intimidating because same I've gotten that all my life. They're just intimidated by you. And it's because in my opinion, I just viewed it as it's because I have a more dominant personality. And it's not that I'm dominating, because that's very different than having a dominant personality. A dominant personality, from my perspective, is I'm not afraid to show up. I'm not afraid to say, I'll talk about the elephant in the room that no one else will talk about. I'm not afraid to have tough conversations, and it makes people uncomfortable. And so then you get labeled as intimidating because I don't have a problem doing those things. And but if it was flipped and a man had that, they would say he's a leader. And so it's those types of things. That's the kind of stuff that we're talking about here, because and we'd love to, listeners, we'd love to hear your stories. Because I'm looking at a whole list of words on my screen, and like just being direct. Well, if you're direct and you don't pussyfoot around things, then you're a bitch. Oh, you're calling me out on that? And it's like, no, wait a minute. I'm just stating a fact. I'm not tiptoeing around it, and I'm not like skirting the issue. I just call it like it is. I just say what it is. I call a spade a spade. That's what my dad always used to say. Call a spade a spade.
Yeah.
It's not trying to be a heart or a club or a diamond. It's a spade.
Yeah.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
but when you do that, then it's like, oh gosh, well, she's so forceful. And it's like, no, you know, because I am comfortable having uncomfortable conversations doesn't mean that I'm something negative, right?
So
And
in some relationships, I've been told that that directness is confused with not being soft around the edges. And I'm
Oh,
like, you always know where you stand with me. Why wouldn't you want that? And
right.
I've had other men in other situations tell me, we love it. We don't have to guess what you're thinking. Like, we know exactly how to get from A to B
yeah.
with you, and that's awesome. And then I've had women like, well, you should probably. I'm like, yeah, I'm not
No,
going to probably do anything.
no, no.
I,
And
I,
go ahead, Lori.
I was going to say probably the thing that would make me the maddest is I have a job to do. I'm trying to do my job. People are getting in my way of me doing my job because they're out golfing or, whatever. And so I get mad and I'm like, look, people, we have to get this done or whatever it is. And we're not bashing men, but a man would say, that time of the month, Lori,
Oh, yes.
Yikes.
Yeah.
talk about adding fuel to the fire is
Yes.
not a good way. Yes. Yes. If we're strong, if we're angry, then it must be that time of the month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great example of getting that. And one of the things I know, talking with the hundreds of women that I've talked to, probably thousands of women that I've talked to, self-promoting is really hard for them, because then you're bragging. you know.
Yes.
But a man could stand up in front of a room and shout his accolades from the mountaintops, and he gets applauded, you know. And it's like, now wait a minute, I'll share just a quick story. My dad, humbleness is one of his top values. And he always used to get on me about, boy, you're really talking about yourself there, Angie. You're really bragging about yourself. And I was like, now wait a minute. I said, you always taught me that if it's true, to say it. And I'm like, so I won this award and it's true. So how is that bragging? And my dad really had to take a step back and look at his own values and say, now there's a way to say it. Like, if it's like, oh, well, yes, in 2024, I was Ohio's Small Business of the Year, which I was, and whoo, look at me. But it's like, that's not how I was saying it. So it's how you present it, makes a difference. But I was saying, I'm super proud of the fact that my very first year in business, that Ohio recognized me out of all the other small businesses, that I was Ohio Small Business of the Year. I'm really proud of that fact, So there's
You should be.
and so, so I really challenged my dad's thinking, and I was like, so if it's true, why can't I say it? And so that's what I think about, like, self promoting. You don't want to be a jerk about it, and you don't want to like over exaggerate or shove it down people's throats or whatever that is. Yeah, don't be a jerk, right?
Right, right.
But and I just think as women, we need to give ourselves permission to say those things and feel very proud of every accomplishment that you've ever received or
Yeah.
earned, I should say.
And it kind of goes into we're in an era where social proof, what's the proof behind what you're saying? Well, here's
Mhm.
my award,
Yeah.
So not only did I do it, but I have proof that I did it. So,
Yes.
but if people don't know what you did,
Yeah,
then
exactly.
I've run into, now, ladies, I'd like your opinion. I've run into a situation before where I was doing a talk and a lady in the audience, it was a small group, and so they were free to ask questions, kept diverting the talk to something she wanted to talk about.
Mm.
Now, I know this isn't exactly what we're talking about here, but I think that happens as well, like with men and women, where and I know this from my corporate days, where I would say something, oh, we should blah 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 blah, crickets, and then a guy would mention it, blah 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 blah, and like, oh, high five, high five, and and I'm not the only one that's ever run into that. My other female colleagues were saying the same thing. It's like, oh my gosh, and we would get interrupted a lot,
Mm.
and so I look at the interruption, even though that was a woman doing it at the time, as being just as, what's the word I'm looking for? Just as degrading. That might be a little too harsh.
Yes.
As if a man had done it. So ladies, also be aware, if it's someone else's show or stage, don't try to up them.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
it is a form of disrespect. And
Yeah.
you just have to say, I value what you have to say, and we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
So take the
Yeah.
time. But I think that's also where the assertiveness is. Instead of shrinking back and letting somebody else take over, you say,
Mhm.
I value what you have to say. Now's not the time. And you just finish what you're going to do. But like, hey, we'll get back to that.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's I think, and I don't know this because I obviously don't know that woman in the audience, but it makes me wonder if what you were talking about was uncomfortable to her. So she was trying to adjust the conversation to a more comfortable, conversation. Or it could be she thought she was the smartest person in the room and she wanted to show that, because I've had that happen.
I think it was the latter.
Ah,
It felt like the latter because every time I would try to talk about, and again, it was a small group, and I was shocked because I knew her, and I didn't. I mean, she was not the kind of person that would do something like that. At least I didn't think so. But so I was a little shocked, and you're totally correct. I should have said, "Hey, let's take that offline,"
yeah.
but.
But so for the topic that we're on, the words, let's bring it. How do we stop promoting what's being done? Because we're guilty of it too. Oh, look at her. She's behaving and we do it to each other. So how do we flip the script to start setting the example of, if you're assertive as a man, that's fine. If you're assertive of a woman, that's still fine. Like, you can both be assertive and it can both be a positive.
Yes. So I've got two examples of how I really try. Well, I have more than two, but I'll share two. I really try, like, I'm such a girl's girl, that I really try to celebrate other women. I try to elevate other women, promote other women. And listeners, I don't know if you know, I have another podcast. It's called The Girl with the Purple Hair Talks Business. And all I do is promote women in business. That is the sole purpose of that particular podcast. And because I'm trying to flip the script, I'm trying to change the narrative and say, and I would say, quite a few of my guests over the past, I don't know, 4 or 5 years I've been doing this, have been my direct competitors. And I've had coaches say, "What are you doing?" And I said, "No," I'm like, because it's not about me, it's about them. And when I remove my ego and I remove myself from a situation, it turns into a beautiful conversation. And if I can do something to elevate, even if it is one of my competitors, I'm trying to change the narrative. I'm trying to flip the script. And so I try to find ways to do that. And although I don't consider myself necessarily a cheerleader, but in a lot of ways I am, because I do celebrate when other women win. I want to celebrate with them. I want to promote that. I want to share that. I want to shout it from the mountaintop so that more people hear about what this particular woman just accomplished. So that's what I'm trying to do. And listeners, we'd love to hear how any ideas or thoughts that you might have on that as well.
Well, and I love that because you always hear, my piece of the pie. The pie's huge. There's tons of it.
Yes.
And I don't want everybody else's pieces. Like,
No.
I kind of want to stay in my lane. I did a training for the 6 Working Geniuses yesterday for a large hospital organization here. And the way I train is going to be different than the way somebody else trains.
Yes.
So there's other people in this town that do the same thing I do, but they hired me because they wanted me.
Yes.
Because they've seen me speak before and do the things. So I'm like, it's not a competition.
No. No.
And when you make it a competition, you bring that negative energy, which is kind of countering all the good stuff that you're trying to do. And it's exactly as you said, Anne, we all do what we do in a different way than our competitors would be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And what we say and what we put out there is what helps us to attract the people who want to be coached or whatever by us. So yeah. And so
I had somebody ask me, like, do you do disc training for, John Maxwell disc? I'm like, no, I'm not certified in disc and I don't want to be. I don't want to be all things to all people.
Right.
I know coaches who do that, and I will gladly refer you to another coach.
Mm-hmm.
That's just seems like a better way to do business than to, yes, I do it all and try and figure it out.
No.
Exactly. And I've referred people to others that do something
Same.
similar than I do, but I knew they weren't a fit for me. They wouldn't get as much from what I provide
Yeah.
as they would for someone based upon a conversation that we had.
Yes. Yeah. And that's more, the collaborative approach than the competitive approach. And, because like Ann said, the pie is massive. There's what, 8 billion people in the world, like
And
there's more.
collaboration is one of my core values.
And
That's one I hold very dear. And I show that in the fact that I have several collaborations I'm part of.
yes, I love that. Yeah.
And this is one of them.
Yes, and this is one of them. Absolutely. Great point, Lori. Yeah, so I think that there's just little ways that we can do things, or if you're listening to a conversation that's happening going, now wait a minute, don't be afraid to be bold and stand up and say, I disagree. And disagreement doesn't have to be a bad thing. It stretches our thinking, it stretches our belief system, it gets us to truly understand someone else's perspective on something. And if you see something like this happening and say, I disagree, I don't view it like that, I don't view someone who is a powerful person and really like just commands a room whenever they walk into it, that doesn't have to be threatening, that doesn't have to make the other people in the room small, that's, it doesn't have to mean that, but a lot of times that's how it gets labeled, that's how it gets perceived. And so just stand up and say, I don't feel small at all when I'm standing next to a powerful person someone I view as a powerful person. I want to learn from them. And it's like I'm sitting on, like E.F. Hutton, whatever they're saying, I'm listening, because I want to learn from them. I want to grow. I want to stretch my own thinking. And chances are high, I'm going to hear a nugget that's going to be transformative, but whenever I'm thinking, oh, well, I don't know, they're making me feel so small and, they're so powerful. And then you miss the message. You miss those opportunities to learn and grow. That's my TED Talk for today.
Well done. Well, and I think disagreement does two things. One, it tests your beliefs. Do I really believe what I say I believe? Because if this is upsetting me, then maybe I don't. And it starts a conversation.
Yeah.
Like, that's an interesting perspective. Why do you think that? Because I feel something different. Just have a conversation. And maybe at the end, you're like, yep, I believe what I believe. And yes, I still disagree with you. That's fine.
Right.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's so beautiful. I mean, yeah, everything doesn't have to be divisive and like I think about there's this meme and it's been going around for years about a young girl. You see this meme and this young girl is like being bossy. You think about Lucy from the Charlie Brown, and it's like, no, okay, Lucy might have been a little bossy, okay, but when you see little girls being bossy like that, and it's like they're leaning into their leadership skills, they're learning and developing leadership skills, and if you see them crossing that line into the bossy, that's a teachable moment, but don't stifle their leadership development.
Right.
There's something internal about them that is trying to come out, and they're just little girls, so they're trying to figure it out, just like we once all did, right? And for some of us adults, we're still trying to figure it out. And
still working on it.
allow them the opportunity to develop those leadership skills naturally, because that's her authentic self trying to shine. And I see this, I have conversations with parents all the time, and I'm not a parent by choice, but I'm like, don't stifle that, redirect. Now she's bullying, that's you redirect, because
Right.
that's not something that's not okay, because even there are adult bullies, and bullying is not okay, it doesn't matter how old you are, but allow them to explore those types of things. And if you're managing a team and you see someone who, maybe you're feeling some kind of way, and they might be opinionated, and you might view them as difficult. You might view them as a difficult employee. And it's like, no, have a conversation. Just because they're opinionated doesn't make them a bad employee. Open up a dialogue, like Anne said, have that conversation with them, and perhaps you might learn something from them, because they might have some ideas that streamlines a process, that makes something better, is a cost saver. But because you view them as being difficult, you just automatically shut down when they start speaking.
Well, and it kind of goes back to what we were talking about before we started recording. Things like Myers-Briggs, DISC, and even Ayurveda, which comes from ancient India. It helps us understand better who we are, mm-hmm. and helps us better understand other people. Yeah. Because, just like you said, she's not bossy, but that's her leadership. Yeah. So she has that strength, whereas someone else might not have that strength. So they might be easy to take advantage of. Mm-hmm. That's where the bullying, that's where you got to draw that line. But when we start understanding that when people are being their authentic self, honor that. Yeah. You may not like it, right, but honor it. There are people that I know that I'm not all that fond of, but I recognize that is their way, and they're not doing anything bad. They're not doing anything mean. Right. It's just, it just rubs me the wrong way. But I honor that. It's them. Right. And I still love them, right? Yeah. I still love them. I don't avoid them. So anyway, we just have to be more understanding, I think, about others, and how we all take in, all the inputs that we're pulling in. We all deal with them differently, and sometimes and Anne, I do love what you said. Have a conversation. Yes. Because you don't have to agree, but it helps to understand. That's part of that understanding.
Yeah. Yep. Any last words before we close out? I know, listeners, we would love to hear your stories and different experiences that you have had. And if you're trying to change the narrative, definitely reach out and let us know. We would love to hear that, because we want to champion your cause and cheer you on and support you. Because we're out here trying to change the narrative to make the world just a little bit of a better place. And I think if we all come together and do just one little thing, that ripple effect makes a big, big difference.
100%.
Yeah. All right. Well, until next time, listeners, this is the Unapologetically Unstoppable Women podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.